All right, Hare Krishna. Now at a certain point we can turn the heat off, but I think take the edge off. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Sorry. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhagavad-gita Ashtottara Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhagavad-gita Ashtottara Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. All righty. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this third day of April 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 6, Dhyāna-yoga, the yoga of meditation. Text number 31 at the bottom of page 283. Please see your books. If you want to, you can sit on the floor, no problem. Okay. All right. 283? Yes. Okay, 31. We'll do word by words, as we usually do. Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yo Mam Bhajati Ekatvam Asitaha Sarvata Vartamano Api Sayogi Mahivartate Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yo Mam Bhajate Kattvamastitaha Sarvata Vartamanopi Sayogi Mahivartate Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yo Mam Bhajate Kattvamastitaha Sarvata Vartamanopi Sayogi Mahivartate Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yo Mam Bhajate Kattvamastitaha Sarvata Vartamanopi Sayogi Mahivartate. Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yo Mam Bhajate Kattvamastitaha Sarvata Vartamanopi Sayogi Mahivartate. Anyone online? Come on, Tapas.
Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yo Mam
Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yo Mam
Bhajate Ekadvam Astita
Bhajate Kattvamastitaha
Sarvata Vartamanopi
Sarvata Vartamanopi
Sayogi Mahivartate.
Sayogi Mahivartate. Okay, so I'll read the word by words myself. You can read along silently. Sarva Bhuta Stitam, situated in everyone's heart. Yaha, he who, mam, me, bhajati, serves in devotional service. Ekatvam, in oneness. Astitaha, situated. Sarvata, in all respects. Vartamanaha, being situated. Api, in spite of. Saha, he, yogi, the transcendentalist. Mai, in me, vartate, remains. Translation. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul within all creatures are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Purport. A yogi who is practicing meditation on the Supersoul sees within himself the plenary portion of Krishna as Viṣṇu, with 4 hands holding conchshell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The yogi should know that Viṣṇu is not different from Krishna. Krishna in this form of Supersoul is situated in everyone's heart. Furthermore, there is no difference between the innumerable Supersouls present in the innumerable hearts of living entities. Nor is there a difference between a Krishna-conscious person always engaged in transcendental loving service of Krishna and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the Supersoul. The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities while in material existence, remains always situated in Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-187 of Srila Rupa Goswami. Nikolas Vastastu Jivan Mukta Sa Uchite. A devotee of the Lord, always acting in Krishna consciousness, is automatically liberated, In the Narada Pancharatra, this is confirmed in this way. Dikkaladyanabachinne Krishne cheto vidhayacha tanmayo babati chipram jivo brahmani yojiyet. By concentrating one's attention on the transcendental form of Krishna, who is all-pervading and beyond time and space, one becomes absorbed in thinking of Krishna and then attains the happy state of transcendental association with him. Krishna consciousness is the highest stage of trance in yoga practice. This very understanding that Krishna is present as the Paramatma in everyone's heart makes the yogi faultless. The Vedas, Gopal Tapani Upanishad 121, confirm this inconceivable potency of the Lord as follows. Eko bisan bahodayo vabhati. Although the Lord is one, he is present in innumerable hearts as many. Similarly, in the Smriti Shastra, the Matsya Purana, it is said, Eka eva paro Viṣṇu sarva vyapi nasangshayaha aishwaryad rupamekangcha suryavat bahudeyate. Viṣṇu is one, and yet he is certainly all-pervading. By his inconceivable potency, in spite of his one form, he is present everywhere, as the sun appears in many places at once. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, in this verse, Krishna is describing, and in the purport, how Krishna is situated in one place. He's in Goloka Vrindavan, in his spiritual world. He never leaves, in one sense. But at the same time, because he's omnipotent, beyond our conception of the powers that he has, he can expand and appear in the hearts of every one of us as the Supersoul. So that means that we all have God manifested in our heart. And what does he do there? He describes that in the 13th chapter. Upadrashta namantachar bharta bhokta maheshwara. I am overseeing and I'm permitting. And in the 15th chapter he says, I give knowledge, remembrance, and also forgetfulness. So Krishna, as a Supersoul, is working through our intelligence to direct our activities. Everything is under the supervision of Krishna through the Supersoul. And he really wants to instruct us and help us to come back to him. Why does he want that? Because we're all his children. Krishna says at the beginning of the 14th chapter, Sarva yoni shakonte yamurti eksambhavandeda tasam brahma mahajoni aham bija padakpita. The last line literally means, I am the seed-giving father for all the living entities we see. And you know, there are different categories, of course. You know, we have all the fish in the ocean, we have the insects, we have all the plants of so many varieties, and of course human beings, of each one of the individual. In every organism, let's put it that way, which is a combination of a soul and a body, Krishna is also present. And in the 13th chapter, he calls the soul the Kshetra Gya. Gya, you may be familiar with the word Jnana. It's related to the word Gnostic. Gnostic means a knower, a wise person, right? In I think the medieval European Christian tradition. So that Gnostic the root is in the Sanskrit, in jnana. Simply the gya, without the ni, means not the knowledge, but the knower. So Kshetra is the field of the body. We know this field of this body. And we know some of the things outside the body through the senses also. So this is all our field of activity, of knowledge and interaction, you see. But Krishna also said that I am also the Kshetra Gya. I am in every single body, and I know all the bodies. Why not? One of the things I learned before I even heard of Krishna consciousness, studying philosophy, and some of it was theology, God was defined in many of the middle-aged theologians. He's omnipotent, omniscient and omnipresent. Who can deny it? Krishna has those qualities. Omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. But the additional factor that's given in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the line of Vaishnavism that we follow, is that he's also a complete person, just like we are. He has activities, he has relationships, he has preferences for, you know, his pets, mostly cows. He loves the cows. And he's a person, supreme person. But he can, unlike ourselves, he can expand, and he can have unlimited personal relationships with thousands and millions of living entities. And each one of us can feel a personal relationship with him. And that's indeed the goal of Bhakti Yoga. To read it, if you don't have to sit on it, you can sit on it. Take shelter of the... That's why we put him in there. So, Prabhupada says near the beginning of this book and in other places that we can know a lot about God by contemplating ourselves, because we're little sample gods. You know, we're infinitesimal. Prabhupada always gives the example of the little drop of water, the ocean, the huge ocean here. But if you take a little, you know, test tube out of it and you analyze it, it'll have the salt, it'll have the elements of the whole ocean, right, in minute degree. So we have the qualities of God in a minute degree. We're also inherently divine. But in our conditioned state, meaning that we're exiles from the spiritual world. Why? Because we didn't want to serve God. We wanted to be God. We wanted to control, you see? So we can be little controllers for some time, but inevitably in the material world we're limited. And due to the force of time, everything that we value is gradually taken away from us, and finally our life is taken away. And if you have no standing in Krishna consciousness, because the basic philosophy is that we have this external body, which is not us, but it is twofold. We have the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. I think we have those, right? I can't see your mind, you can't see mine, but we know we have a mind. And we have the external body, which we call the body, you know, which everyone has. So when the physical body stops functioning, which it will for one reason or another, right? We all know that. The subtle body continues. We as souls, we never die. Najayate mriyate vakadacha, in the second chapter of Krishna teaches. For the soul, there is never birth nor death at any time. We're not coming into being, there's not new souls coming to being and going out of being. We are as eternal as Krishna. Ajo nityak shashvato yam purano. This is the third line of the verse. Ajo means unborn. Nitya means eternal. Shashvata means permanent. It's kind of a little redundant. Purana, ancient. Ancient. We've lived for millions and millions of years. But every time we die, every time the body dies, we forget. Next birth, you come out of the womb, you don't know anything, right? Even though you have so many experiences, but they're all kind of, you can't access them. And that's fortunate, because if we had to remember all those past lives, we probably couldn't live for a moment. How you died, how you got killed, you were eaten. Best to forget. So, but Krishna consciousness is a process of remembering more and more of our ideal life in the spiritual world, which we can also practice for here. For instance, this worship we do every morning. There's a morning program that starts at 4:30 in the morning. That's like the big surrender. You know, getting up to be able to get there at 4:30 in the morning. Nobody does it spontaneously, you know. Why do you have to wake up in the middle of the night? You know, it's only 4 o'clock. No, that's one of the principles, that the morning time is called Brahma Muhurta. There's a certain name for each part of the day. Is the most ideal for spiritual practices. You know, it's quiet outside, you know, and it's more meditative. And so many things happen in the morning. The first ceremony at 4:30 in the morning, we see the deities, we sing a song about the spiritual master, because he's our essential connection to the Lord, you know, so merciful. And part of that program is chanting Hare Krishna together, kirtan. And then we worship the sacred bush called Tulsi. You know that everyone grew up right now. We go around the mulberry bush. Now we go around. This Tulsi is a species of mulberry, yes, but it's holy basil, holy basil. So we have that, you know, very dear to Krishna. He has Tulsi leaves. You know, he wears, you know, Tulsi garland. And then there's japa, meditation on beads, just like a rosary, 2 hours. Minimum, usually to chant 16 rounds. When Prabhupada began this movement in 1966 in New York, he had a small group of serious devotees who had joined him. Middle of the hippie days, you know, most of them had taken drugs, this and that. But when they were willing to join him in this chanting and hearing him discourse on the Bhagavad Gita and the prasadam he gave, they felt the attraction, they felt the bliss, even just a little bit, you know. But they said, this is genuine. And so gradually they became serious. And then came the point of initiation. This is something called diksha in Sanskrit. Now this is the point where you really take a step forward and you take vows. Yes, I vow that for, you know, the rest of my life I will chant 16 rounds. So it began with 64 rounds, when they had 64 rounds. Believe me, that's not easy to chant 64 rounds. I did it one day. We had a japa retreat up in Joshua Tree, up here. And it was very blissful. It was all thinking about chanting all day. Different devotees would speak, and we read some of the Shastra and things. And then there was this, one of the days was reserved for chanting 64 rounds. Wow. So at 5 minutes a round, it takes 5 hours and 20 minutes. But 5 minutes around is very, very quick. Generally, about 7 minutes around. So it takes, you know, well into the afternoon, until lunchtime. You begin at 7, and but it's a wonderful meditation, because after some time the mind kind of quiets and really takes in the holy name. It's the simplest thing, to hear with great attention and absorption the sound of this holy name, of this Hare Krishna mantra. The mantra, there's all kinds of mantras in the Vedic culture. There's mantras that in the Tantra tradition, where you're chanting a mantra in order to become powerful, in order to kill your enemy. You know, that's also possible. There's mantras, you know, to control others' minds and all of these different things. There's mantras, and this is Prabhupada showed us, he experienced it, that are chanted to pacify a poisonous snake, so you can actually control them to become pacified. It can be very important. You can imagine. If you go to Mayapur, there are some snakes there. But anyway, this mantra is known as the Maha Mantra because it is very powerful for liberating one from the bondage of material energy and placing one in relation to Krishna. It is said, you know, inconceivably, that it's non-different from Krishna himself. And when you chant and hear carefully, you're associating with Krishna, and that purification process is going on. And what's the first, you know, experience of that? Is that you become peaceful and joyful. You're not, you know, so many things may be troubling you out there, but after a few days of chanting, you attain a more peaceful and upbeat. You know, you become very hopeful for the future, spiritually. So, and it works every time. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're willing to put in that time and also follow the restrictions. This is another thing. There's only two vows you take when you get initiated. You get a new name, get a new identity, and you vow to chant those 16 rounds a day. You know, maybe it takes 2.5 hours, whatever. And to follow the 4 regulative principles. Now, before I tell you what they are, in this chapter, this is about Dhyāna-yoga, which is otherwise known as Ashtanga yoga. Ashta means 8, Anga means limb, or part. So there's 8 parts, 8 stages to this yoga. The first one is yama, and the next one is niyama. So yama is the don'ts. Just like in any process, you know, you want to go to college. All right, I'm going to have to, I can't party every night, right? I have to study. Do study, don't party, right? If you want to get your degree. In anything. I give the example learning a musical instrument because I did that several times. You know, you have to go to someone who knows how to play and who can advise you, finger it this way, learn to play the flute, so I play like that. And after some time, you become proficient. You know? So the same thing is true for this process. It's called the Bhakti Marga. Marga means a path. So it's a path from our present state of consciousness to blissful divine consciousness. And so the don'ts are no intoxication, which is, it's very difficult if you're addicted to something. But no intoxication, which even includes tea and coffee, and no gambling, which can be just as addictive as cocaine. I heard people gambling. You have Gambling Anonymous, right? Gamblers Anonymous. No meat eating. Everyone knows we're vegetarian. And no illicit sex, which is basically sex outside of marriage. Yes. There might be a yes, it's the caffeine that's the problem. So if you have, and just like we drink herbal tea, so without the caffeine, so you could do that. So but it can be a real surrender if you're really deeply involved in those things. I was fortunate. I was following them anyway. I was already practicing yoga. I had a raw food diet, not just vegetarian. I was so many juices and everything, So that was good, and it definitely changes your consciousness. There's one verse describing it said Nivritta Tarsha Rupagi Yamaran Babausadat Shota Mano Virarat Ko Uttama Shloka Gunana Varat Puman Varajeti Vina Pashugna. Pashugna means one who's killing animals. So this verse says that when you're able to hear the glories of God from a pure devotee, someone who's super advanced, like Srila Prabhupada, Nivritta Tarsha, Upadgiyamanan Bhavaushadam. It serves as a remedy, as an antidote to entanglement in birth, death, old age, and disease. In other words, it can cure your problem of being in the wheel of samsara. Shrotamano, and it's not a bitter medicine. Aushadhi means a medicine. It's very delightful, Hare Krishna mantra can be sung very, very nicely, melodically, and the whole process like that. Shrota Mano Biraman. So, but mostly you're hearing the words from the pure devotee. Like we're reading this book. This is such an important book because Prabhupada explained it's Krishna's words, of course, and then the explanation from the pure devotee. So, who would give up hearing this? Who would give up this process except the Pashugna, meat eaters? It does something to your consciousness, because it's just the amount of suffering that has to go on by these poor cows, just on that basis alone. You don't need it. I've been a vegetarian longer than I've been a devotee, so 52 and a half years. Still going strong, 76, carrots, beets, a lot of fruit. So there's no necessity for it, and that was part of Prabhupada's revolution. He showed the devotees how to cook Indian food. It was very tasty as well. So it doesn't take long to give that meat eating up. It's not, but those are the don'ts, And the other vow you take is to do 16 rounds a day, and then there's a process of purification as you go on. And there's actually a beautiful book called The Nectar of Devotion that Srila Prabhupada gave us, which is a translation of a Sanskrit book called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, written by Lord Chaitanya's chief disciple, Rupa Goswami. And there he gives the principles of bhakti, and he gives the stages of advancement, and he gives also the details of the different rasas, or different relationships you can have with Krishna. It's all described in that book. It's a very important book, and Prabhupada translated. It's available. So the idea is that this yoga process is not one of really subtraction, ultimately. Yes, you have to give up this, and do this. But ultimately, it's addition. You're experiencing new life experiences that you didn't even know existed. And it all depends on your consciousness, your purification of consciousness. We were discussing in the previous verse, Krishna says how one sees me everywhere, right? I think we just had that verse. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So how can you see God everywhere? Well, you can understand that everything that exists is God's energy, including us. So you see a person, you don't just see a person like you used to. Oh, there's a soul there in this ever-changing material body, and there's also the Supersoul within, you see. And that person can also become interested in Krishna. And that's the most important thing, because by following this process, even just a little bit, you never lose that. Even when your body dies, you'll begin the next birth in that part. But anything material you have, you can be a multi-billionaire. You can be so famous, you can have so much position. It's all taken away at death, because it's all related to the body. But any spiritual advancement you make, Krishna says, Neha Brahmanashosti Pratyavayona Vidyate. In this process of Krishna consciousness, there's no loss and there's no diminution. Where can you find that on the material side? No, there's always ultimately complete loss and complete diminution, no matter what you have. So why invest all of our attention in these things that are eventually going to be taken away from us? And all our attachment for them will just bring us back again to another material body. If we're intelligent, we should invest. We got to invest our time and our energy in something. In the process, that will take us steps forward. We may not complete in one lifetime, but that's not the end of the world, because it'll all be there in the next lifetime. We take it up again. And understanding Krishna, our relationship with Krishna, becoming purified of attraction to this material world, and entering more and more into the blissful life of Krishna consciousness. That's what we're after. We're after happiness and pleasure that doesn't fade. But you can't find that on the material side. It's just a dream, it's an illusion, it's Maya's trick to think, oh, I can be happy and secure here. You can't. You know, any moment there might be an earthquake. There's one real serious one, right? And we're only 2 blocks from the ocean, you know. Tsunami. So there's one verse, this wonderful devotee once taught me. He used to live here. Spent a lot of time here. His name was Viṣṇu Swami, he became. And I like to chant verses, shlokas, the Sanskrit shlokas. It's a wonderful meditation, just like these Bhagavad Gita verses. So I was with him in Vrindavan. I was standing online waiting to get prasadam. I wasn't a sannyasi at that time. And so I said, as I was often doing then, and even now I do it, would you like to hear a nice verse? You know? So he said, yes. And he pulled out a pad to take notes. No one ever did that before. So I forget, maybe I gave him this verse from the Karnamrita. This is a Krishna Karnamrita. This devotee was so advanced, he's writing this book, and he says, oh, this book is nectar for Krishna's ears. That's pretty bold, right? But the thing is, he was with Krishna writing it, you know. You could tell he liked it. So one of the verses there is a very beautiful verse, simple. Madhuram. Madhuram means sweet. You know, in all kinds of ways, attractive and beautiful sounds and taste. Madodam, madodam, bapadasya vibho, madodam, madodam, vadanam, madodam. Madogandhi mridu smitameta laho, madodam, 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 madodam. It's easy to learn. So what it means is, and when you see the deity form, you can apply this verse. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face, so fair. But his honey-scented, gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. So it might have been the verse I gave him. So he gave me another verse, which I'll share, which was more like, you know, hot chili verse. It was a serious verse. So deheshte mangsududide mimatam chajasva jaya sutare jasadhama matam vimuncha pashyani sam jagadidham chanabhangatishnam vairagya raga rasiko bhavabhakti nishtam. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids at home. At every moment, see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. Now, whenever I share that little poem I wrote, I say, well, I really couldn't do full justice to the last line. Because the last line says, Vairagya raga. They're two opposite things. Vairagya means detachment, raga means attachment. So, it says, what it says is, become attached to detachment from material world. And become a rasika. Become someone who can taste and who can experience a personal relationship with Krishna. And in this way become very fixed in bhakti. So, but it requires, you know, don't get absorbed in the body.
You know, the pleasures and the pains of the body. It's just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. It is a tool. The value of the body is it is a tool, especially the human body, the bigger brain and intelligence, for cultivating the consciousness so that the soul becomes more and more closer and closer to Krishna. The body's going to go one way or another. But if we're completely pure and loving Krishna, the body will go just like we take off an old coat, goodbye. And we'll go back to Godhead. To have an eternal form just suited to our particular relation with Krishna. And what are those relations? Then you read the Krishna book Prabhupada gave us, the story of Krishna's adventures in his home of Vrindavan, you know, with the cowherd boys and playing. And then, of course, in Boma Vrindavan, he had an arch enemy who would send demons to try to kill him, and they would all be killed. And then they would go home, the boys would be singing, and the mothers would say, "Oh, Krishna's so great, he killed this demon, that demon." You know. So Krishna has a job. He's the cowherd boy. You know, he has to tend the cows. But you take the cows into the forest, there's plenty of forage for them. They take care of themselves, and the boys spend all day just playing together. Wouldn't that be a nice job to have? And then they go home and he's playing the flute, he's charming everything. So that's Krishna consciousness. Now, in the present chapter of this book, Krishna is stressing this Dhyāna-yoga. And Prabhupada is giving us so many parallels between the Dhyāna-yoga and Bhakti-yoga. And as the Dhyāna yogis, you know, they have to go be alone, and they have to sit for long hours, you know, working on the mind and the breath, you know, quieting the mind. And then ultimately they're meditating on the Lord within in the Supersoul form. You see, that's what the yogis meditate on. So that's what he's saying. But the real yogis, the Bhakti yogis, they understand that the Supersoul and I are one. Remains always in me, in all consciousness. So we don't sit there and meditate on the Supersoul. We sit there and meditate on the holy name of Krishna. And part of our realization is seeing Krishna in the heart of everybody. And seeing that every single person, even every single little living entity, can benefit from contact with Krishna. Even if we can just give a little prasadam to I mentioned we used to have a cat. I've been here a long time, 35 years almost. And we had this cat, which the devotees named Narada Muni. And I said, you can't name him that Narada Muni. Narada Muni is such an exalted soul, but that's who he was, Narada Muni. I remember he had an orange color. And he would always come around breakfast time, you know. And cats love milk. And we had this this one preparation where we condensed the milk down, add some sugar, you know, it's called kheer. And that cat developed a strong attraction to kheer. So I would always put some kheer on a little leaf, you know, and leave it for the cat. And he would go there and he was part of our family, you know. So that's, you know, a little taste of Krishna consciousness. But all of, you know, Krishna is describing the benefits and the consciousness of the mature yogi. And then Arjuna comes in the a couple of verses, we maybe get to that. And he basically says, I can't do it. There's no way I can do this yoga. My mind is too restless, too powerful. So then there's a little discussion about that. And at the end of the chapter, Krishna says, don't worry, you don't have to perform this yoga. You're already thinking of me at every moment in your heart, because he's an intimate associate of Krishna. And then beginning in the next chapter, which we'll get to in a few days, he begins describing how even in our ordinary daily life we can see Krishna everywhere. Because we can see this is all Krishna's energy. He's present everywhere, you see, especially if we're chanting and we're trying to serve Krishna. So that's the middle 6 chapters, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, are the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, culminating in chapter 12, which is titled Bhakti Yoga, and very short. So any discussion or questions on any of these points? Yes, Prabhu. Mike? Sorry, we have an audience out there.
So in the don'ts you mentioned gambling. That seems in this day and age especially to be more difficult to define. How does the order define that? Because
gambling.
Because I mean you can get into finance or day trading or cryptocurrency. I mean, is that more difficult to define today?
Well, it's pretty clear, you know, what you're doing. In other words, you're investing in something that is not a sure thing. that you might lose, even, in the stock market, that can also crash like that. So that's discouraged. The basic principle is to understand that everything belongs to God and is meant to be used in His service. So it's best to, we're investing. So it's best if you have some money invested by, putting it in that hundi over there, and we can put on a beautiful festival for Krishna or something like that. Then it's a sure thing. If you invest in the stock market, you may lose, and that'll be, devastating to you. Oh, I had $10,000 or $100,000, and now it's gone, or it's greatly diminished. So you want to get away from that, and that's part of what it means to surrender. Now, there are many devotees, members of this community, who are householders, and they have jobs and so forth, but they try to lead lives that are devoid of that gambling mentality. In that, okay, I'll become very rich, because the basis of it is kind of greed, which is I explained last night. I don't know if you were here. That's one of the gates leading to hell. It's like lust, anger, and greed. These are in the mode of ignorance. So especially if you're able to be a single or brahmachari, you want to minimize the material things that you have, and that what do you become greedy for? Shlokas. There's one verse where the devotee prays to be a miser. Miser is just the opposite of devotees. So he says, how's it good? Anyway, I made a poem for the verse. Compelled to constantly collect and count his precious hoard, the miser contemplates his wealth with avaricious aims. Please bless me to become a miser who's compelled, O Lord, to constantly collect and count and contemplate your names. So you can become greedy. I remember I'm memorizing, I came across this verse. It's a beautiful verse in a book called the Govinda Lilamrita, describing Krishna coming back from the forest of Vrindavan, with his friends and the cows. And you can just hear the poetry. It's very difficult. He rhymes each line at the beginning and to the end of each line. Not easy. Denu vrindamanamanamayantam, venu geetamamatam visvajantam, renu rushita chalalaka bantam, kenu vikshasamayor namodantam. So Denu means cow, and Vrinda means herd, so the herds of cows. Anumandamayantam. Krishna is walking leisurely behind his herd of cows as he's coming back from the forest of Vrindavan. Now you can imagine the gopis have been separated from him for all day, and they're just longing to see him again. So they're here, seeing the cloud of dust that the cows are coming up, and they can maybe hear the flute in the distance. Oh, so they go up to the top of the roofs, and they see, is Krishna coming? Is Krishna coming? So that's going on. It's not mentioned in this verse. So Krishna's leisurely coming, and as he walks, what is he doing? He's playing that flute. Venu, Gitam. He's playing this song, which is Amrita. Venu Gitam Amritam Visrajantam, creating this nectarian song of the flute. And as he walks, and as the cows walk, they're kicking up all this sacred dust of Vrindavan, and that's going onto his hair and sanctifying it, beautifying it even more. So Renu Rushita Chalalaka Bantam. Alaka is a hair, and it's moving back and forth. Chalalaka Bantam. Then the last line says, Ke nu viksha samayur nabodantam, who, seeing this sight, would not attain the highest bliss. Mood is a word for joy, and antam is the end of joy. Now, isn't it interesting? If you chant the verse, or even in the English, I didn't put it into a poem, I should. You'll see it in your mind's eye, isn't it? How many of us have read a nice novel or something? Of course, you see it. You're reading the word, but you see the imagery. So this is what we should be greedy for. The sound vibration, the service, and as far as wealth that comes into our hands, we should, as far as possible, use it in the service for Krishna instead of gambling it. Because gambling is based on, I hope I can win, I take a walk sometimes, I walk by this corner bodega, and they're always advertising the lottery. And it used to be, it's up to 100 million, 10 million. Now it's over 1 billion sometimes, you can imagine the dreams people have. Oh yeah, definitely. No, we don't play the lottery. It creates a lot of anxiety, yeah.
So then total renunciation is not part of the initiation, renunciation of all property and material goods?
Not necessarily, no. Because initiates, you can be a householder, and you need to have certain property, and you have your car and your house and everything.
But as a person becomes more dedicated to the order, is there a point where renunciation is desired?
Well,
or
yeah,
demanded?
ideally, Prabhupada would give us, I mean, this is something that's rarely followed exactly, and that is, if, I never got married. I never got, had that entanglement. But many of the people I joined with did. And we have some very good examples of Krishna conscious household families here. I always think of Gaur Keshava, and his wonderful wife, and Nangapriya. They have these 2 children growing up. And they're being trained in Krishna consciousness. The boy he's like 8 years old. He's an excellent drummer. And he even plays these big whompers, he's just a little kid. Boom, boom. And he's always in time, So, and he gives class, sometimes. So the point is that you can make, and you go to his house, he's got a big altar there with all kinds of deities who are taken care of very nicely, so you can make your home into a temple. So that's, but there's supposed to be, and it's hard to follow in the West because you don't have the larger society supporting it. Just like in India, even today, if you seriously take sannyas, then you can live by begging, say in a semi-rural or rural area. They're pious, and they're all devotees to some extent, and they'll give you something to eat, or a cloth to wear, So this is high renunciation. But you have the support element. But in the West, of course, you take sannyas, and you can go from temple to temple, and this way you can do it. But there's a stage before that called vanaprastha, where the man and the wife, they go off and they go traveling to different holy places. But they still need the support of the pious people in general, and you don't find that in America. So it's not so easy in the West to follow these 4 stages. But the basic principle is to become as detached as possible from things that you use for your own pleasure. And even the things that you use for your own maintenance, like the food, you offer, and you see, I'm sustaining this body so I can do service with it, to keep it healthy. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So they always see things in the perspective of, how is this facilitating and helping my service for Krishna, rather than distracting me from it. That's the basic principle. Because training the mind and the body to always be connected to Krishna, that's really the process of devotional service. And when you finally leave the body in that consciousness, then you just want to keep serving Krishna, and then go back home, back to Godhead, and perfection. But yes, it's a serious discipline. And to be honest with you, many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, you don't see them anymore, they're all exalted souls, but there was a certain point at which they couldn't keep serving. They fell away from the process. But there's no loss or diminution. And Prabhupada knew that.
What do you mean they fell away?
They stopped chanting, or they became less serious, they felt they needed something that was outside of the rules and regulations, And so generally they still have a very favorable attraction. You see them in big festivals. They may come by, how you doing, but the sure thing for the men is that the long hair is there, So it's a difficult process. There are difficulties in it, and that's why, you need to be determined and choose your association carefully, because the association is where your consciousness is formed. Yeah.
Well, so last week when I was here, we talked about association with sort of non-devotees. Do people typically, as they move farther in the order, do they disassociate with even family at times? Is that part of it?
Well, if you're want to enter into the brahmachari ashram, which is Prabhupada recommended if you really want to go fast, then that means leaving family ties. That's why usually these were all young guys who hadn't, really built up families. They may have had some liaison here and there, which is common in the 60s, 70s, this is West. But it was easier to leave. So that's you can make quicker advancement then, because you can stay much more focused without distraction and without, all these things. But still, Prabhupada, welcomed many married couples, and he even married devotees. He oversaw their marriages, And he always loved to point yes. Okay, just one second. In 1968, I think it was, there were 3 couples, one with a little baby girl they were carrying, this is Malati and Shyamasundar, who he sent to England, to pioneer England. There were really no devotees there yet. And Mukunda and his wife, Mukunda was an expert musician, and so was Yamuna. Yamuna was a famous cook. She wrote a big cookbook, and she was also an excellent singer. And Shyamasundar was an excellent manager, and he was able to get in touch with the Beatles, you imagine, and with George Harrison. That was a huge shot in the arm for the movement, because George really loved the devotees, you know, and he was world famous already, you know. And so they cut a record, which became, you know, up near the top, you know, of sales, and so it was a big thing. And Prabhupada came over, and so those were 3 married couples, you know, who did it. So there's you know, that facility is there, and but it's a big commitment to, you know, raise children and really do the whole thing. That we had schools, Prabhupada, you know, established, and in Alachua, Florida, there's still a nice school there, and in India, in Vrindavan, different Gurukul schools, raise the children in Krishna consciousness. So it's amazing how fast, you know, within a matter of 12 years, Prabhupada was able to grow this movement all over the world, 108 centers. He built a big temple in Bombay and a big temple in Vrindavan. I was there for the opening of that in 1975. And writing these books in the middle of the night, he dictate the books, you know, and gradually he finished 9 cantos and 3 volumes of the 10th canto, and wrote many other books. So Prabhupada was just, and it was all simply to help others. You know, he just showed how dedicate your life for giving others Krishna consciousness, understanding the value of it, and you yourself will become advanced, and because you'll get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna by helping others to become Krishna conscious. Even today, you know, you just take with you some flyers, and you see somebody here, come to the lounge, come to the class, you know. You'll find you're getting, you know, Krishna's giving you a little dollop of bliss for helping others. Yes?
First
Good,
of all,
yeah.
I want to say,
Do you have the...
I got family ties a long time ago because I wanted to keep my sanity. Okay, and second, I would like to know, when people leave, are they welcome back, or how does that work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, if they want to come back, it means they understand, okay, we'll have to take up the process again, and, you know, the disciplines. So yeah, that's for sure, and that has happened a lot also. That we have found many devotees who have wandered or strayed, as we say, but they come back, especially, you know, when they're older and they feel that they may leave the body soon. They want to get the association of devotees. You know.
Do people usually come back?
You know, it's hard to say. I'll tell you, you know, my situation, I used to travel regularly 2 or 3 times a year, mostly in the United States and Canada, different Ratha Yatras and things. And every so often, the BBT, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, who produces these books, they would send me to India. So I've been to Vrindavan maybe 10 times, and, you know, like that. So, but now I haven't traveled since the pandemic. You know, I'm getting older, and it's just harder to do. And so you know, I'm not exactly up on the latest, you know, figures for how many devotees come back, but generally, if they do come back, they don't come back, you know, and throw themselves 100% into the movement. They have their life, they're a little bit aloof, but they're attracted to Krishna, to Prabhupada, to the books and things, so you'll see them.
When you start coming here, do they give you a certain amount of time to get it together?
Oh, you can have all the time you want.
Oh, okay.
There was a fellow who came, I never saw him before. I don't know if he came to the lounge this morning. He shows up from Mangalarctic, which is rare. That's usually not the first thing you do, is come at 4:30 in the morning. But he was here, and he was older. He was at least 50. And afterward, he wanted to stay and chant japa, you know. So they set him up with these beads, but the beads were so small that he had trouble working with them, you know. So I went home, I got some bigger beads and set him up. And so he was very happy, and he stayed for most of the japa period. Then he had something to do. I don't know if he was working or whatever. So, yes, the whole reason for this temple is to be a place where the devotees themselves can gather, and we can welcome guests and encourage them in devotional service. That's why we have the Sunday feast, which Prabhupada set up, and we have our lounge program and twice here and also downtown, or down in, what's it, La Mesa? Chula Vista. I am, my job, my service for all these years has mostly been working with the books. This book, the Bhagavad Gita, I did some work on it, but other books I did all of the editing. And so it's still going on, checking and thinking and stuff. So I have my office about a block from here, and but I come every morning. Chad can attest to that because he comes every morning too. If I don't see him, I say, "Where's Chad?" If he doesn't see me, he says, "Where's Dravida?" So it's a nice family atmosphere. We know each other, and it's all simply, when you bring it all, boil it all down, it's all just giving. The more that we can give to Krishna and the devotees, the better we'll feel, because we'll get Krishna's mercy from inside. And we better quit because they're gonna blow that conchshell. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada. No, okay, go ahead.
What's the color of Narada Muni, the cat? Saffron.
You could call it saffron. It was more orange. But Narada Muni's hair himself is blonde. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew it, but then I forgot. Okay.